So, do you find yourself in certain areas of your life just doing the same things you always do, having the same conversations that you always have, knowing that it's not going to change anything, it's not going to make any difference, but just being stuck like you don't know what else there is to do? Okay. At the same time, you may be literally watching people next to you, producing the results that you want, getting the things that you want to get, and having the experiences and overcoming their fears that you really want to overcome. So, at the same time, do you ever find yourself getting particular symptoms like headaches or stiffness in the back of the neck and the head, or a tension like a pressure around the skull? Okay, this series of videos is almost definitely for you and is going to help you unlock that experience. Okay, so let me explain a little bit about the mechanism that allows us to create truths, okay, and test out our theories in life. So consider, when you have a new experience, you compare it to your old experiences to see whether it aligns with those experiences or not. Like, like eating a fruit, is it an apple or is it a banana? Your brain processes the experience and then it stores it underneath it's one piece of evidence or another piece of evidence. Now, over time, we gather those pieces of evidence together and we start to try and make sense of our experience of life from those things, right? Now, often we then get to a point where we make a decision, oh, this is true. Water is wet. Heat can hurt me. And then once you have created a truth, it's almost like it sits outside of you, okay? Now, rather than engaging with truths, what I'm going to invite you to do is to consider that what you're doing is called truing yourself up to something. Now, what does that mean and what does it look like, okay? So if I true these two things up to each other, okay, I go from you being able to see two things to a point where it seems like there's only one alignment. So when things are true to each other, they can completely obscure the real reality of something. So what does that look like in real life? It looks like I collect so much evidence about the fact that people don't listen to me that I don't even try and express myself, and then people are not listening to me. Okay? I hold my physical body in a particular way for so long that the muscles actually become strong in that position and they feel weak when I'm not standing in that position. Then any activity that I want to do that forces me to be in that secondary position actually feels wrong, feels uncomfortable. Like if you've crossed your legs for ages, sitting with your legs uncrossed actually feels uncomfortable and vulnerable, when in fact it's just your body telling you this is not how you normally sit. So, how do you then start to free up evidence that you've collected over time to change what you're trued up to, which will then change your experience of what is true for you in your life? I'm going to give you 3 tips and 3 areas to look at in your own body that will help you to unravel the truth that you are locked inside of and to start to see different perspectives. Okay? So the first is actually really an observation outside you in life. If there are people around you who are already seeing something different, they're producing results that you are not producing, almost like they can see something you can't see, then assume that they really can see something you can't see, that they are aligned in a different perspective to you, and hang out with them, talk to them about their perspective until you can start to see your own view as a view, not as a truth, and you can see their view as just an alternative view. Okay, that's the first thing. And that literally will affect your perspective, your eye line. So that sometimes means actually placing yourself in different physical spaces to look at something. When animals do this and when human beings do this, often it's because we're changing our perspective so that we can see something we couldn't see before. Second thing is, if you're gathering a lot of evidence and you're being very right about something, like, no, this person is definitely a particular way, or I always feel that way when I have this situation, or I already know how I'm going to feel tomorrow because of what's going to happen, then that's a red flag, and consider that you've gathered some evidence which only gives you one point of view. And start to look from another perspective. Like, well, has it ever happened before, for me or for anybody else, that the opposite has occurred? Like, has something that I'm really afraid of actually not materialized at the last minute? Have I actually ever been brave enough to say what's on my mind rather than just say to myself, there's no point? As you start to remember, and it might take you some work to do this because the brain buries evidence that doesn't align with your truth, buries it quite deep. As you start to remember, you start to gather more evidence to just balance out the argument. And the point of this is not to actually prove that this is right or prove that this is wrong. It's just to show you that there are two different perspectives, and if you stand here, it will look one way, and if you stand here, it will look another way. And then that places you in the middle between those 2 points of view, effectively frees you to then look and see what is the most empowering place to stand and what's the most empowering actions and interpretations of something. And this is how we can move from being terrified of doing something to just taking it in our stride, or being a beginner at something to actually being completely comfortable and masterful with doing it. Okay? And then the third thing is to keep reminding yourself that truth is not a physical thing. It's actually alive and changes. Like what was true yesterday may not be true at all tomorrow, and may be in the middle of transformation and change today. Okay? When I work with clients who are going through transitions and transformations, periods of life, jobs, schools, exams, it's really important for them to be aware that at the end of it, they will be a different person. And so what was true about them may not be true when they get to the other side of that transformation. That immediately starts you looking out for where old truths can fall away, and literally starts to change symptoms related to sinuses, to the back of the neck and the back of the head. So if you're finding that those symptoms that were true about you, or those limitations that you were coming up against, are actually starting to dissolve as a result of this video, I'd love to hear from you.